The courtroom held the kind of silence that did not just fill a room, it pressed down on it. Heavy walls of wood and stone loomed over a girl standing alone in the center, her wrists bound, her eyes vacant. A rope rested on her shoulder, not yet tightened, but already final. The judge's voice echoed somewhere behind her, reading out the sentence, but she no longer heard it. She did not flinch when the verdict was spoken. She did not look up when the bailiff moved forward. Whatever fight had once lived in her had already gone quiet. At her feet sat a dog. A German shepherd, old and scarred. His ribs visible beneath a thinning coat, his body still but alert. No leash pulled him in. No command had placed him there. He had appeared on his own hours before the trial began and refused to leave her side. The officials had tried to remove him. He had not barked. He had not bit. He had simply stayed, and then, as the noose was lifted, the dog slowly rose. His legs moved with effort, stiff from age or something deeper. He walked to the gallows, not with panic or force, but with quiet purpose. Standing beneath the rope, he looked up at it, then turned to her and sat. In that moment, something shifted in the room. And though no one knew the dog's name, what he did next would change the story that followed and uncover a truth no one was prepared to face. Long before that courtroom fell silent, long before the world labeled her guilty, the girl and the dog had shared a life no one ever truly saw. Her name was Mira, 17. She lived at the edge of a forgotten mining town in a run-down trailer with her uncle, a man known for his hard voice and harder fists. The neighbors heard shouting more nights than they could count, but no one stepped in, and Mira never ran. Not because she was not afraid, but because she had nowhere else to go. The dog had appeared in her life the same way he arrived in court, unexpected, quiet, and determined. It was winter when she first saw him, limping down the side of the road with a wound near his shoulder and frost clinging to his whiskers. She opened her coat, knelt in the snow, and whispered, "You can come in." Or, "Keep walking." He had come in and never left. She called him Rook. He never wore a tag, never barked at strangers. But every time her uncle raised his voice, Rook would step between them. Every time she locked herself in the bathroom, he would lie just outside the door. He never judged, never asked questions. And Mira never had to explain why her arms were sometimes bruised, or why she walked with her head down in town. Rook already knew. The night everything changed, there was a storm, loud, violent, and long. The power had gone out. Mira had tried to leave. A small duffel bag, her school books, and Rook by her side. But her uncle was already waiting. What happened next was quick: a fight, a scream, glass shattering. And when the neighbors finally called the police, all they found was Mira in the kitchen, shaking, barefoot, blood on her hands. Her uncle lay beside the table, motionless. Rook was missing. No one asked what led up to that moment. They saw the girl, they saw the body, and they made their decision. The trial was swift. No defense witnesses, no character letters, just silence. But what no one knew was that Rook had returned. On the morning of the sentencing, he walked into the courthouse. No leash, no collar. Covered in rain and mud, his old injury reopened, leaving small red marks along the marble floors. The guards tried to chase him out. He sat. Mira saw him from across the room, and for the first time in weeks, her face changed. She smiled faintly, just once, because someone had come back for her, and deep inside, she knew if Rook was there. The truth had not been buried yet. As the courtroom sat frozen, caught between protocol and disbelief, Rook did not move from beneath the noose. His chest rose and fell with a steady rhythm, but his eyes never left Mira. There was no aggression in his body, no threat in his posture. Just a kind of stillness that felt louder than anything the judge had said all morning. And though no one dared admit it aloud, something about the way that old dog positioned himself made people hesitate. The bailiff took a cautious step forward. Rook's ear twitched, but he did not growl. He simply leaned slightly toward Mira, as if to block the space between her and the rope. Another officer stepped in. Mira's voice broke through soft but certain. "Please, do not touch him." It was the first thing she had said all trial. One of the courtroom observers stood abruptly and called out, "That doggy belongs to the girl. He's been missing for weeks." The judge raised a hand for silence, but something had already shifted in the air. The people in that room were no longer just witnesses to a verdict. They were watching something else unfold, something deeper. More human. Keller, the county's veteran rescue officer who had attended the sentencing as a formality, now stepped forward. He had recognized the dog the moment he saw him. Years ago, he had worked with retired K-9 units, and though Rook had never worn an official badge, his eyes held the same fire. "Let me approach," Keller said calmly. He knelt just beside Rook, showing his empty palms, speaking low. "You came here for a reason, did you not?" Rook looked at him briefly, then back at Mira. Keller reached out slowly and examined the old wound near the dog's shoulder. It was fresh, newer than expected. "This injury happened recently," Keller said aloud, addressing the judge. "Not from weeks ago, likely within the past 2 days." The room stirred. If this girl had harmed her uncle in cold blood, he continued, why would this dog come back to protect her, bleeding, wounded, barely able to walk? No one answered. Keller turned to Myra. "What happened that night?" Her lips parted, trembling. "I tried to leave," she whispered. "But he grabbed me. I fell." Rook bit his arm only once. Then he hit him, hard, and Rook ran off. "I thought he was dead." The judge narrowed his eyes. "You never said any of this in court." "I did not think it mattered," Mira said. "No one believed me anyway. But now they did, because the dog she thought had vanished had come back, and not just to sit beside her, but to bear witness, to show the world through a wounded paw and quiet eyes that he had seen it all." The court clerk turned to the bench and whispered something quickly to the judge. Within minutes, a motion was filed to delay the execution order. An emergency review was opened. And Mira, once bound and silent, was led from the center of the room, not as a criminal, but as someone who might finally be heard. Beside her, Rook limped slowly forward, not as evidence, but as proof that love never forgets. The hearing room had emptied, but Keller remained, seated beside Mira and Rook in the quiet chamber, reserved for emergency reviews. The girl sat with her shoulders hunched, eyes fixed on the floor, while Rook rested his head on her feet, his breathing slow, his coat still damp from the storm outside. A soft hum of fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, but no one spoke for a long time. Then the door opened. A young clerk entered holding a file. She looked unsure, nervous even, but when she handed it to the judge, her voice did not shake. This was buried under the wrong case ID. Someone mislabeled it. The judge raised an eyebrow, opened the folder, and slowly turned the pages. Inside were photographs dated, time-stamped, showing bruises on Myra's arms and legs from a prior visit to the emergency room. Records never presented during the trial. Keller leaned over and scanned the documents, his brow tightening. "They had this," he muttered. And still no one asked why. Mira did not respond. She simply ran her fingers across Rook's fur, her voice a whisper now. He always knew. Outside the chamber, the press had gathered. The sudden motion to halt the sentence had drawn attention. But inside, something quieter was unfolding, a kind of reckoning. Rook stirred. He tried to stand, but Keller gently placed a hand on his back. "Take it easy, old boy," he said softly. "You have already done more than enough." The judge looked at Mira for the first time without a gavel in hand. "Your sentence is suspended," he said. "The case is reopened, and you are free for now." Mira nodded, unable to speak. The weight on her chest had not vanished, but it had shifted. She looked at Rook, her voice cracking. "I thought you were gone." But Rook simply blinked, leaned against her leg, and let out a quiet exhale. It was not dramatic. It was not loud. It was just peace, the kind they had both chased in different ways for years. As Keller stood to escort them out, the judge added one last thing. There will be questions, headlines, people wanting answers. Mira looked down at her dog, who now limped beside her. Let them ask, she said. He is the only one who ever really listened. They stepped outside, into the gray light of a sky just starting to break open. The air smelled of rain, and the noise of the world returned. But something was different now. Not in the buildings. Not in the law. In her. Some bonds are not built with words, and some truths are not spoken in courtrooms. Sometimes it takes a silent companion to remind the world what justice is supposed to feel like. Rook never barked his truth, never demanded attention, but he stood where no one else would. He stood when the world gave up on a girl who never had a voice to begin with. In the end, it was not evidence or law that shifted the weight. It was loyalty, steady and unshaken, lying at the padin, feet of someone the world tried to forget. And maybe that is what we need to remember. That even in our quietest moments, someone might still be listening. And if they are, they may come back not to speak for us, but to remind the world we were worth hearing after all.